Welcome to Islamic Learning Adventures. Let's explore, learn, and grow together.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Islamic Learning Adventures. I'm your host Sanaullah Khan, and today we have a distinguished friend with us, introducing Ameen Khan, the founder of Muslim Money Expert, bringing just under a decade of invaluable experience in wealth and management, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And financial planning. Ameen, it's a pleasure to meet you.
And you, thank you for inviting me onto your show.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by ZFi Logistic, your trusted logistics services provider and reliable deliver partner. Ameen, can you enlighten us with your journey, your career path, where you are here at the moment?
How I got to Muslim Money Expert?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite an interesting journey. I didn't actually, when I first embarked on this journey, know anything about finance, financial planning, wealth management. I actually went to university to study law. I completed my law degree, and as I completed my law degree, I came out and I fell a bit out of love with law. So I was looking at other avenues, and I come across a job in a small IFA office, independent financial advisor office, and I started there with the scanning and the shredding, and eventually, day by day, I just started increasing my responsibilities. The advisor, the manager that I was working for, began increasing my responsibilities. And after a couple of months of doing that, he said to me, Ameen, if you're serious and you want to work in this industry, start doing your exams. So I looked into the exams. I began taking the exams. So I took my first exam, which, if you know about financial services, if you are going down the CII route, it's the RO1. So I completed that exam, and having completed that exam, I spent a couple more months there before I was headhunted by another IFA firm, financial planning firm, who were more on a regional level, whereas this was a local level. The new company was a regional level company. And from there, I spent 4 or 5 years there learning the ins and outs of financial planning, investments, finding suitable investments, suitable investment accounts, how it works, how to save on taxes, how to grow your wealth long term. So we was working with long term care, ISAs, pensions, all of that stuff. After 4 or 5 years there, I said to my employers at the time that I want to also become a financial advisor now. I've completed all of my exams, I've understood the knowledge of it, and they agreed to not employ me, but allow me to become a financial advisor under their branding. So I've handed in my notice now, given them the 1 month period. They found my replacement. Having found my replacement, I've left now the company and embarked onto my self-employed journey under their branding. However, a week later, COVID comes out. So that was a huge thing. But at that time, no one knew it was going to be a massive thing. So we all just thought it'd blow over. So a few more weeks go by, and now we realize the seriousness of COVID, and the whole country's gone into lockdown, which for somebody that's just gone into a self-employed role, that actively means you have to go out and seek new clients, you have to build the networking and the connection. Those opportunities weren't available at that stage now. So I'm stuck. There's no financial support from the government either, because I haven't got any previous accounts, as I'm just newly self-employed. So my companies, they said, look, we've already got a replacement for you. Our work is a bit slowed down now, but we can offer you some contracting work through this period. So I did some contracting for them, just writing reports, doing some research on the investments. However, long term, that wasn't feasible. So I was then offered, well, I went out and looked for a new job, and I found a new job at a new firm where I was the senior paraplanner again, so the technical lead of the team and the office manager. And at this company, I was working for what is probably the biggest single advisor in the country. So he has around 1,000 clients, and he himself has almost £1 billion of assets under management. So he is managing £1 billion on his own. And if you work in financial services, or you understand financial services and wealth management, you understand how big of a deal that is. A lot of investment companies that are massive fund houses don't have £1 billion to play with. So I spent a couple of years there. And then at that point, again, I was headhunted for a new IFA firm that was just in the process of setting up. They wanted somebody to lead their paraplanning team. So the person that's responsible for the research and the report. So they contacted me. We made a sort of deal. But it was at this point in my head where I've also started now looking into Islam a bit more. So I'm working there. My parents in the background have been telling me for the last couple of years, I mean, leave this industry. It's not like, no, it's fine. We just manage investments. We're not doing anything too crazy. But at this time now, interest rates are going up. So now we're recommending to our clients to be investing into bonds. We're recommending them deposit accounts that are paying the highest level of interest. This company is now dealing with mortgages on a bigger level, whereas my previous companies, we weren't dealing with mortgages as much, or they were in a different department that didn't relate to us in any way, shape, or form. So all of this is now piling up onto me, and in my head, I'm thinking, this isn't right. I'm debating in myself. I'm trying to almost lie to myself. No, it's fine. I mean, you're not dealing with it. But then I at this point, I've booked a holiday and with my friend, and we're going to Jerusalem, Al Quds, to visit the mosque. And so, yeah, and it's still playing in my head. So I said to myself, I'm gonna go do dua, read to the car, and see what this has to make. As soon as I read that, I come back home to the hotel room. I'm sat there with my friend, and I'm like, nah, this is on. I can't do this. I'm gonna, when I'm back and I'm handing my notice and just leave it. And then my friend was like, yeah. So I came back home. I told my parents that, you know what, you're right. This is haram. I'm gonna leave this sort of work. And went back to the office. Spent a week there. Handed in my notice at that point. Gave them my mum's notice, and then from there set up Muslim Money Expert to hopefully teach Muslims some of the important information that I've learned along that journey. Because one thing I've realized in this journey is Muslims don't have a clue about financial planning and
Yep.
financial services, how money works. It is an unfortunate state. But yeah, that's the journey. So to where we
MashaAllah.
got here.
MashaAllah. How old you were when you left your first company?
When I left my first company, I was, I think, around 22.
The last one?
I giving away my age now, but 29.
29, MashaAllah.
29.
29, and you were working one of the toppest country.
So at the last company, this was a new firm that has just been set up. So they're starting ground up, but they were growing very fast.
But nicely paid.
Alhamdulillah,
Alhamdulillah.
it was very nicely paid. When I think about it, it is crazy what I gave up. It was very nicely paid. If you think that the average salary in the UK is probably what, £32,000, £33,000, and it was almost double that. And then I'll say this: since then, I've gotten on my savings and odd jobs that I'm doing here and there. So it's a humbling reminder from going from here to down here, and I'm not upset about it in any shape or way or form, because my trust is in Allah. That I believe that I've given up something haram, and inshallah Allah will replace it with something better. But saying that at the same time, yes, I'd reached probably the high level that I could have in terms of paraplanning or support work for the financial advisor. But the next step was to become a financial advisor in my own right. And at that stage, you're building your own client bank. But when you're established after a few years, you're looking at an income of £80,000 up to some of the best financial advisors out there are earning £1 million a year. So
what would you suggest the young and upcoming graduates who wants to get into financial advisor? What would you suggest them?
this is a very tricky question, because the problem is massive need for financial advice in the Muslim community, and there's a massive need for Muslims to understand how financial services work, how to financially as well. But the problem is when you go into the conventional offices, you are unfortunately working in a haram area. The best thing that you can do is if you can find an Islamic firm. However, from my research, there's only two or three in the country, so that's going to be very difficult. The other option that you can do is you can go through some academies, and they will take you through the exams, and they will um, give you the knowledge and impart the knowledge onto you. You may have to pay for them, some are free depending on the company. However, the issue you're going to have there is you won't have the practical knowledge. So it's a bit of a sticky situation. It's a catch-22 at the moment. If you go into the industry, you are going to invariably be involved in some haram work. Um, but if you don't go into the industry, you won't
Get experience.
You won't get the experience. So I would have to leave it to that person. They'll have to contact their scholar that they know and trust and ask them, because that's beyond my pay grade anyway. I wouldn't have the answer to that. But I would definitely suggest, even if you're not doing it as a career, the majority of people don't need to do it as a career. It's more important as a community we understand how finances work and how they play a role in our life. So whoever you are, even if you're not going into financial services, financial planning, you have no desire for it, as a bare minimum, you should understand how investments work, what to invest in, the difference between um, passive investing and active investment, tracker funds. You should understand the basic tax preference accounts, i.e. ISAs and pensions. And you should also understand the importance of having a will in place, the importance of having a power of attorney in place. And you should also, most importantly, understand the importance of budgeting. Budgeting is the number one key. But so as all Muslim should understand the basics of financial planning, even if you're not going into that career.
MashaAllah. The article says 1 in 5 British Muslims surveyed has used a food bank. So that means 1 in 5 Muslims, they are struggling with basic necessities.
Yeah.
So can you enlighten us on the current state of Muslim finances in UK, please?
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to get a bit of backlash for this, because whenever I do highlight the current state of British Muslims and their finances in the UK, it's almost like I'm making up the figures, because it's so well hidden in our communities, because we come from a community where we brush it under the carpet, stay silent about it. So your neighbor could be struggling right now and you will even know, because they don't want to show it to the wider community. But yeah, unfortunately, the Muslim community, and it saddens me to say this, is pretty much failing on every single metric. So like you said, 20% of Muslims are seeking food banks, that they need someone else to rely to provide food on their table. We are 4 times more likely to live in overcrowded homes in the UK as Muslims. Only 50% of Muslims are in employment, in comparison to 70% of the wider community, the general population. 25% of Muslims in the UK have no qualification whatsoever. So that means that they're limited in what jobs they can do. That's in comparison to the UK population as a whole, which is only 18%. In terms of income, the highest community in the UK is currently the Jewish community. They are earning just under £20 an hour now, on average, in their community. Now, if I was to say to you, the Jewish community is earning about £20 an hour, how much do you think the Muslim community on average is earning an hour in comparison, if you was to guess?
Is minimum salary age?
Yeah. Well, okay, I think we had this discussion before. But most people will be shocked to realize this, that the Muslim in comparison is earning half what their Jewish peer is earning, around £9 an hour. The average across the whole population in the UK is around £13 an hour. So we're even earning less than the general population. You can say that the Jewish community is an outlier because they are the highest. But even average population, we are earning the least amongst the whole community. And as a Muslim, we should always be the best. We should strive for excellency. And at the moment, we're the least educated, the highest amount in social housing, the lowest earning, working the most menial jobs. And now there are some factors that are mitigating factors behind it. For example, only 50% of the Muslim community is working in comparison to 70% in the general population. One of the mitigating factors is that women don't usually play an active role, in the workplace in the Muslim community, because their main goal is to provide, look after their home, look after their children, raise their children. So you could say that's a sort of mitigating factor. You can say with, for example, with the overcrowded homes, that Muslims don't like to deal with interest. So that's the reason that they have the highest amount of people in social housing, and they don't own their own home because they want to avoid mortgages. Although for me personally, I don't believe that, because the majority of Muslims that I speak to, unfortunately, in this day and age, they don't care about mortgages being forbidden. But we'll get onto that later. I think you want to speak
Yep.
about mortgages
Yeah,
later.
sure.
But the real concerning thing to me, which I can't find a mitigating factor to in my head, I can't reconcile it, is the fact that we're one of the least educated communities in the UK. As from our religion, in our deen, that we've been told our whole lives that, you know, one of the most important things is to go out and study and to read, and we're one of the least educated communities. That's shocking to me. And then the second thing is that, sorry, let me just go back to this education part, yeah? So it's something that upsets me, because I think education is one of the most important aspects of life, regardless of your religion, regardless of your background, whatever it is. There should be no reason not to be educated. So you can say that, okay, this person came from a different country, that's why they don't have the level of education, but that shouldn't stop them from picking up a book, learning the alphabet. I was speaking to a guy the other day, and he goes, I came to this country 10 years ago. I couldn't speak a word of English. I couldn't read or write English. I was getting by and speaking his own language in Urdu. Uh, but then he goes, I started sitting with my kids. And as I was sitting with the kids, they would teach me the words. And, you know, a lot of people would get embarrassed that, you
Yeah.
know, he's learning from kids. But I was learning the ABC like they was. I was learning the words like they was. And if I got stuck on a word, I would ask them to teach me the word. And they would tell me the meaning of the word. And that's how I learned English. And today he can speak fluent English. And then the second point, so the education I'm quite upset about. But the second point that I'm upset about is the fact that Muslims are earning half of what the Jewish community is earning, and they're earning about 70% of what the general population is earning. And when I've mentioned this in the past, people have said to me, "Oh no, that's due to racism. You don't understand. I mean, it's because when we go into a workplace that we're being racially profiled,
Racially.
we won't get the promotions, or they won't. They want to help their own community. So why then is the Indian community, the Hindu community, the second highest earning community in the UK? If you're being racially
Racially.
profiled,
Yep.
why isn't the Hindu community, who are
Being Asian. Yeah.
on the whole, brown or Asian from India? So they're the same skin tone as the majority of us, or as Muslims. So why are they not being racially profiled? Why can they earn double what we're earning?
That's true. Good point.
So that's one of the reasons that I don't give into this racial profiling discussion. So unfortunately, that's the current state of the Muslims in Britain. There are some to it though. I will say there are some positives to it. There are many, many entrepreneurs in the Muslim community who are becoming very wealthy. Yeah, it's also important to remember that the majority of Muslims in the UK currently are either first or second generation, the majority. So they are still establishing themselves. It will be a process, but we need to increase our level of education and increase our employment rates and the type of jobs we're working in, so that we can catch up.
Oh, I mean, I was quite shocked. Things and statistic you mentioned is disheartening. Like you mentioned about education and income and rational discrimination. But what's the solution for this?
So, in terms of the solution, the first thing is that we need to acknowledge the issue. we have to accept that, yes, we are failing, because until we accept the issue, we won't be able to address it. That's the first step. But now that we've accepted that, yes, this is an issue, then what are the practical steps that we can take? And the first practical step is to return to Allah and to understand our religion. What does our religion say? And because in Islam, there's an answer for everything. There is a solution for everything. And people forget this. People think that they'll find their answers elsewhere. But the first answer is in Islam. And what is the first answer? And Allah says in the Quran, and whoever relies upon Allah, Allah is sufficient for him.
MashaAllah, yes.
Yeah. So the first thing we need to do is rely upon Allah. The second thing is we need to now become educated. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that seeking knowledge is an obligation on every Muslim. So we've identified the issue. Yeah. We put our reliance in Allah now, that we're going to take action and Allah's going to provide for us. And we're going to go out and we're going to seek knowledge. And then now we've accepted that, we need to understand the Islamic principles of business as well.
Yeah, let me stop you here.
Yeah.
When you mention education,
Yeah.
is it education a child education or an adult education?
Everybody, the journey of education should never stop.
Because I see
Yeah.
the children's, mostly they go primary and secondary. So there is no escaping from that,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, that's correct.
So it's after the secondary, A levels, graduation,
Yeah.
is the main people not opt into. That's what you mean?
I mean from the day somebody is born until the day somebody passes away, you should be seeking knowledge.
Always. Okay.
Always. And I should just clarify, of course, the primary meaning of seeking knowledge is to seek knowledge in the deen. But if you make your intention that, oh Allah, I'm seeking this knowledge so that I can become wealthy, or I can improve the situation of the Muslims through financial means, then that is a reward for you. Then when you're going out and you're seeking knowledge in terms of finances, how to plan your finances, to invest, then that becomes a reward for you, because you're doing it with the intention that you want to improve the status of the Muslims, of your family, and you're doing it for the sake of Allah, that you want to earn your rizq in a halal way.
Got it.
Yeah. But just going back, your children, if you have children, in terms of their education, it's important to teach them about money young, because now you will go and look at children and they won't understand how finances work anymore. Now, these days, all they understand is that you tap your card and you purchase something.
Yep.
Yeah. And that is not one of the reasons a lot of people are getting into so much debt. When we were growing up, we were using physical cash, right? So if for Eid you got £10 or £20,
you manage your money.
That £20 is in your pocket. When you go to the shop and the shopkeeper says to you that this is going to be £7, you're calculating in your head, if I give £7, I'm only going to have £13 left. And then but nowadays it doesn't work like that. Now you go into the shop, you're tapping your card, you never see the money. You don't have ownership of the money. So with your children, teach them that the importance of how to manage money management. And in terms of education, that is always important, whether that be in general English, maths, science. If you can afford it, send them to tuition. And again, that will be a reward for you. You know what? The Prophet ﷺ said that, provide for your families, because that's a blessing for you as well. So education. But now let's say that you come out of education and you're in the workplace, or you never had the opportunity in your early life to have education. Everybody now has access to the internet. I'm pretty sure 99% of people have access to some form of internet, or they have a mobile. You can literally go onto Google, type in your question, spend a few minutes reading, and you will have a basic understanding of any topic that you want. So if you can't get into formal education, or it's too late for you, at least research around the topic. So for example, I'm telling you about why pensions are so important. I'm sure we're going to get onto that later. But the person can go away and type in, how do pensions in the UK work, on Google? And there will be a plethora of articles that they can read in simple language that will explain it to them all step by step. So always keep learning, always keep studying.
So how can we overcome?
How can we overcome? Another issue is that there's also this mindset in the Muslim community that making money is a bad thing. or it's haram.
Getting
Rich,
quickly, yeah.
getting rich is bad. It's not bad. Yeah,
A lot of youngsters have this thought process.
a lot of youngsters and even a lot of adults. But I don't want to say this, but I think a lot of people use it as a coping mechanism that, oh, because you're Muslim, that you shouldn't be looking to earn wealth. It's a wrong understanding of Muslims, unfortunately. So, as Muslims, it's very important that we become independent. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that the upper hand is better than the lower hand,
Lower hand, yeah.
because the upper hand is the one that gives and the lower hand is the one that receives. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he said that it's better to leave your children well provided for, wealthy on your passing, than it is to leave them poor and begging other people. And even in the Quran, when we read in the Quran that Allah Azza wa Jal says, after the prayers have completed, disperse into the land and seek Allah's bounty. Or it's also said, and seek the betterment of the ultimate abode with what Allah has given to you, and do not neglect your share from this world, and do as Allah did good to you, and do not seek to make mischief in the land. Surely Allah does not like the mischief makers. Now I'm going to zone in onto the part that it says, do not neglect your share from this world. Now, when we read the tafsir and the explanation of this part of the verse, there's two opinions. The first opinion is that this is referring to the fact that make sure you don't miss your prayers, your fasting, give charity, take your share from this world so that you can get the ultimate abode in the hereafter. But the second explanation and the second understanding is, yes, it is important to pray, it's important to give charity and to fast, and all the Islamic stuff is very important. But it's also equally important that you look after your needs in this world and you look after the needs of your family in this world. So there's a story of Umar radiallahu anhu, when he became the Khalif of the empire, the Islamic Empire. He was the second Khalifa. And if you know about Umar radiallahu anhu, you know he was a
strong man,
strong and a strict man,
strict believer,
strict man. So he was walking through the masjid one day, and he sees people there doing zikr and praying, and he says to them, what are you lot doing here? What are you people doing here? Why are you not conducting business? And they said, oh Umar, we don't need to do business. We're the people that have the tawakkul of Allah. Allah will provide for us. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he chased them out with his stick and he said, go to the marketplace and start doing business. He was showing that yes, Allah will provide, but you need to go out and you need to take action. So there's this it's I'll have to confirm, is either an ayat of the Quran, I'm pretty sure it's an ayat of the Quran, or it's hadith, but it says, if you truly relied on Allah like the birds relied on Allah, you'd go out in the morning with your empty stomachs and return in the evening with a full belly. The emphasis there is going out. You have to go out, you have to struggle, you have to strive.
Very good point.
Yes, you have to do action. So keeping with Umar radiallahu anhu, if someone reads his life and what he did when he was the leader, it's amazing. And the emphasis that he also has on Muslims conducting trade and conducting business is amazing. But he was in the marketplace one day, and he sees that the Arabs, they weren't there. There was all outsiders, strangers from the empire. They were Muslim or whatever, but they were there conducting business in the marketplace. So he comes to his people and he goes, what are you people doing? Why are you not trading in the marketplace? Why are you not doing business? They replied saying, oh Umar, we don't need to do trade or business anymore, because we become rich from the conquest. We got so much wealth now, we don't need to do it. Umar radiallahu anhu said, no, you still need to do it, because if you don't do it, you're going to become reliant on the people, on other people, and your women are going to become reliant on those people. And then are you going to be happy? And we see that today, that we're not the forerunners of business anymore. We're not the forerunners of working the jobs that are important in technology. So now who are we reliant on? As Muslims, we're reliant on, unfortunately, kafirs. So if we want to use the internet, we're reliant on non-Muslims. Now you see what's going on in the world currently, right? That technology, we're funding them because we're reliant on their technology, on their businesses. We're funding them to fund the the killing of Muslims, of
They have
innocent
they
Palestinians.
have their news stand.
No news channels, they're biased because Muslims don't actively work in the news and media, or we think someone else is going to do it. Can't think like that. We have to become independent, and this is why I say learning about money and learning about finances is so important, so that we don't become reliant on anybody else, and we stick to the guidance that the Prophet ﷺ said, that the upper hand is better than the lower hand. It's time to become the upper hand now, basically.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
Wallahi. I mean, let's move to the next topic.
Yeah.
Let's move on to one of the most requested topic, Muslims and mortgages.
Muslims and mortgages. It is definitely one of the most requested topics.
I know.
It's one that I'm constantly questioned about all the time.
So my friends always, is it halal to get the mortgages?
Yeah.
Is it halal to get from the private bank or from the Islamic bank? But Islamic bank charges more than private bank, so what's the point going there? So enlighten us, please.
No worries, I will definitely enlighten you. Firstly, I just want to clarify, I'm not a scholar. I'm only passing on the information that I've looked into, I've studied, and what the scholars have said on this topic.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the first thing I have to get out of the way. In terms of mortgages, conventional mortgages, so there's two types of mortgages now, let's say. There's the conventional mortgage and there is what is the Islamic mortgage. With conventional mortgages, absolutely 100% haram. There's no way around it. Now, I know back in the day that there was a fatwa that was going around saying that because it's a necessity into this country, you're allowed to purchase your first house on a mortgage, and it's not haram. That is completely incorrect. You cannot purchase your first home a mortgage on a conventional mortgage. There is no necessity for you to purchase a home on a mortgage. You have the option of going into social housing, and if you can afford to put down a deposit for a property and then pay the mortgage repayments, you can definitely afford to make the rental payments. Now the issue comes is that people are thinking that because I am renting my property, I'm throwing away money. You're not throwing away money, you're showing that you have trust in Allah. Because by you purchasing that property on a conventional mortgage, you are basically saying, no, my trust is not fully in Allah, that Allah will provide for me, that I won't have that security. But by you renting that property, you are putting your trust in Allah. So in terms of conventional mortgages, completely haram, no justification for it, unless in a very, 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 very extreme circumstance. But at that point, you will definitely have to discuss that with a scholar. So that's the first point with conventional mortgages. Now turning on to what's termed Islamic mortgages. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So are Islamic mortgages permissible? Are they okay to use? Now, my personal opinion, and again, I am a nobody in this matter, my personal opinion is I wouldn't personally take out a Islamic mortgage at this stage because they are not completely halal. But on the whole, and a lot of scholars, they deem them to be halal, they deem them to be fine and to be usable, and they also make the case that yes, this is the best solution, so it is usable. In terms of the fact that you said, why should you get an Islamic mortgage? Because it is more expensive. The reason it's more expensive is because they operate in a different way. So a lot of people will say to you, oh, there's no difference, it's just a play with words. But it's not a play with words. And this is how they say that the mortgage is halal. So with a conventional mortgage, a bank will lend you the money. Say a bank will lend you £100,000. You go and buy the £100,000 property. That property is not a liability for the mortgage, for the lender, right? The loan is their liability. Regardless, whatever you do to the property, you still have to pay back their loan, right? Whereas with an Islamic bank, depending on how they've set up their mortgage, there's three methods of doing it. So the first method is an ijara. Now, an ijara is a lease option. Basically, with an ijara, the bank will rent you out the property, and at the end of the lease agreement, they will then hand over the property to you free of charge, or the ownership to you. The second option is what's known as a diminishing musharaka, and this is a co-ownership agreement. So with this method, You will purchase 20% of the property. The bank will purchase the other 80% of the property. You will pay rent on their 80% share. And as you're paying rent, you will also pay a surplus to purchase more and more share of their 80%. So by the end of the 20-year agreement, or whatever the agreement may be, you would have purchased their whole share from the bank. And the third option, and this is probably the most, in my view, from what I've studied, this is the most legitimate and the most halal. So if you can get a mortgage based on this method, an Islamic mortgage based on this method, you will probably be the safest. And this is known as a murabbaha. And that is where the bank will purchase the property, right? And then after they have purchased the property, they will agree to sell it to you at a profit. So for example, if you're very lucky enough to ever find a house for £100,000, which is impossible, but just to keep the math simple, they will go and buy the house for £100,000. And they will say to you, if you want to buy this house from us, you have to pay £120,000. And so you say, yeah, I'm happy to pay you £120,000, but can I pay it to you on installments? And they say, yes, that's fine. You can pay it on installments. So there's no interest involved there.
So who is the owner of the property then?
The bank will be the owner of the property.
So
because
bank has fully paid and purchased the property.
They fully paid and purchased the property. So this is why Islamic mortgages are more expensive than conventional mortgages, because the bank has now taken on the liability of that property. They are in ownership of it. They share the risk with you. So this is one of the points that they say that you say in the Quran, there's an ayat that says, oh, but interest and trade are the same. But interest and trade are not the same. It's not the same. There's a difference. With interest, the liability is all on your head. With this business, the liability, the risk is split between us.
Both of us, yeah.
Both split. So the bank will then say with the murabbaha method that, yeah, you can purchase this property from us for £120,000 and we will allow you to pay it to us in installments. And with installments, there's nothing wrong with it. And Islamically, it is up to the seller of the property to decide how much they want to sell it to you for. They want to sell it, if they want to sell a property to person A for £110,000, and then person B comes along and says, but you offered it to him for 110, why are you giving it to me for 120? That's completely up to the seller. The seller has full right to sell it at however much they want and in whatever method they want. That does not involve interest. So that is the three methods of the Islamic mortgage. And that is the reason why they are more expensive than a conventional mortgage. Again, if you can, the best method out of those three is murabbaha, the murabbaha method, because it's the most cleanest, easiest, because when you come with the diminishing musharaka, people will say that there's a contract within a contract and for whatever reason, but that will become very technical if I get into that discussion. Also try to avoid if they are charging late fees. That is haram in Islam. So that is one of the reasons I personally at this stage wouldn't for myself get an Islamic mortgage, because of the late fees. Now, I want to sort of get past this mortgage question, because a lot of Muslims get hung up on mortgages, and if they think purchasing a property is the be all and end all, that buy your property and then you're safe. This is another massive sort of misconception. Yes, if you can afford it, absolutely buy your property, hold it, is an asset for you. You can pass it on to your children. But don't sacrifice your whole life trying to chase a property, because you have to remember, if you're living in that property, it's not actually an asset for you, because you're living in it. You can't make money from it.
Yep.
Or you can't just turn around one day and say that, what's it called? I want to sell this house and I'm going to use the money for this, because then where are you going to live? So it is an asset in the sense that, yeah, you can sell it at a later date, but it's also a liability for you. You have to maintain the upkeep of it, whereas with a rented property, the landlord is responsible for the upkeep of the property. If the boiler goes, they have to replace it. Also, if you're early in your career, you still want to move around. Maybe you're in London at the moment and you've been offered a job in Manchester, and the job in Manchester is going to pay you 20% uplift. you think to yourself, oh, I can't because I have to pay the mortgage on this property, or I have to sell it. By the time I sell this property, I've lost that job.
Yeah.
Or maybe you want to set up your own business. So you've been employed your whole life. You want to set up your own business now. You have a mortgage. Because you have your mortgage repayments going on, you think, I can't leave my job. I can't leave my job because I have to keep up the mortgage repayments, or I'm going to lose my whole house.
It's
So
risk being a businessman then.
it's a risk being a businessman, but also I just want to point. I just want to explain the point that yes, it's important to own your own property. It's definitely one of the most important steps in financial planning, but also it's not the only step, and there are reasons for not to own your own property at the same time. And sometimes it is beneficial to also rent, but definitely whatever you do, stay away from haram mortgages, conventional mortgages. Yeah.
I mean, the next topic, uh, why Muslim need to start investing in pensions. For example, Muslims seems to be confused about pensions, what they are, uh, if they are halal, how can we invest, uh, how the government will give back the pension to us, is it profiting us. I came to know that when we retired at age 68, then the pension will come back. Is a good investment. Please let us know in detail.
Yeah. Okay. So pensions, this is another area that Muslims are massively undereducated in, confused about, don't understand how they operate, and it is severely, severely, severely affecting the community. So what do I mean by that? Firstly, when a Muslim doesn't have a pension in place, it means that in later life, in the later years, they will not be able to be self-independent. They will have to rely on either the state or their children. And the majority of people in the Muslim community are currently relying on their children. Now, of course, every child should be supporting their parents and providing for them and making sure they're comfortable in their old life and looking after them. No doubt about that. But at the same time, as a parent, you should be thinking that yes, I can rely on my children if I need to, but if I'm taking their income from them, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, I'm just trying to bring the point home, it means that they are being delayed in their journey.
Yeah.
And then what happens is, because they've been supporting their parents their whole life, they haven't been able to save for themselves, and they are now relying on their children, and it becomes a cycle,
Generation after generation.
generation after generation, where each generation is
Wow.
yeah,
Well explained. Good point. Very good point.
relying on their children. So this is why pensions are super, super important. And the second point is, now too many Muslims think that pensions are haram, right? They think that investing in your pension or saving for your pension, your retirement, is haram. It's not haram. Let me just clarify that. Now, regardless of where you stand in the Islamic perspective, so whether you're Sunni, Salafi, Brahmi, Deobandi, I've looked at all of their scholars to see what they're saying on the matter. So there's three types of pensions, right? The first pension is the one that you was referring to, which is the state pension.
State pension, yeah.
Yeah. So you, like you said, you'll receive that at 67, 68, whatever the age will be at your retirement, you will receive a state pension from the government, and the government will provide an income for you on a monthly basis. So I think at the moment it's just over £10,000 a year that they will provide for you if you have the full 35 qualifying years. So you need to work for 35 years, contribute to your national insurance for those years, and then at the age of retirement, state pension age, whatever that may be, you will receive a state pension from the government, right? So that all the scholars are in agreement that that is not haram, that that is a um, support from the government, from Bayt al-Mal, and that is to provide for you, and that is not haram for you to receive. Either way, even if it was, the other point that they make is, even if you said it is haram, you have no choice in the matter. If you are working, you have to pay your national insurance.
Yeah.
And at that age, you are going to receive your state pension regardless. but that's a side point. The main point is that they are in agreement that a state pension is halal for you to contribute to and to receive.
And what if for someone who retires early?
So when you retire early, this is when you come onto your own pensions, your personal pensions. But I'll just quickly finish this with the state pension.
Yep.
That so it's not halal. It is halal. It's fine for you to receive and earn from there, and you will have to contribute for 35 years. You have no choice in the matter if you want to receive it. Then now, in terms of what you said, what if you want to retire early before that age? So now you have to have your private pensions in place, your own pensions. Now there's two types of pensions. Okay, the first type is what's known as a defined contribution pension. This is where you decide every month what you want to contribute into your pension. So the most common example and the one that most people will know is their auto enrollment pension scheme from their workplace
Yep.
pension. That is what most people are now familiar with, right? With this type of pension, you can access it from age 55 currently, which is going up to 57. Yeah, you can take as much out as you want or as little out as you want, and you will use effective tax planning tools. It's up to you to decide how much you want to invest. If you are doing the auto enrollment or your workplace pension, there has to be a minimum contribution of 8% per annum, and that is a combination of you and your employer. Um, so this again is what Muslims are confused about. They don't understand that with these type of pensions, you decide what you want to invest in. You decide when you want to access your pension, and you decide how much you want to invest in. So for Muslims, you need to, if you have this type of pension, which you should do, and if you don't have it, you should open your pension account and find an Islamic compliant investment. And if you want to find an Islamic compliant investment, all you have to do is type in Islamic investment. So if you are with People's Pension, Nest, Aviva, Royal London, whatever it may be, the most common work
Pension
pension
providers.
providers for workplace pension, they will all have an Islamic Sharia compliant pension fund. And if you invest in that, you will be safe. A lot of Muslims currently, they are invested in the default fund. So they're part of their workplace pension scheme, but they're invested in their default fund. And by being invested in your default fund, you are investing in haram companies, and you are also investing in bonds which are interest based. So you need to get out of that. Otherwise, you're going to reach retirement and your pot is going to be full of haram money that you won't be able to use. So as quick as you can, get your login details and switch your investments to a Sharia compliant investment.
So that means auto enrolling into the pensions.
Yeah.
So whatever the money has been contributed,
Yeah,
is already invested.
it will automatically be invested into their default fund for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the number one priority if you have a workplace pension is to get your login details and switch into a Sharia
Sharia
compliant fund.
compliant fund.
Because if you don't, your pension could be invested for 30, 40, 50 years, and it's going to be gaining haram, and you won't be, when you come to retirement age, you'll be living off haram. So you need to be very careful about that fact. Also with the third type of pension now. So with the first type of pension we said is the state pension, which is fine. The second type of pension, which is the defined contribution pension, which would be your personal pension or your workplace pension. The third type of pension is what is known as a defined benefits pension. Now, the majority of people that have the defined benefit pension will be in local council, government jobs, police jobs, military, fire brigade, local government, local service, public sector, and the old school employers. Back in the day, the defined benefit pension, it's basically known as the gold standard pension. With the defined benefit pension, you do not take any risk. Your employer takes all the risk, and they will have to pay you an income for as long as you're alive from your retirement. So you don't have to worry about investments going up or down. Nowadays, it's very rare to come across those type of pensions unless you have a very good employer, because they were so expensive for the company. The company would have to constantly be filling them up, making up any shortfalls. With this type of pension, there is some debate on it. There is some debate on it. The debate surrounds that because the company is taking the money and investing it, they're not investing it in completely halal stocks and investments. There may be some interest based with it. The second is that because you don't know how long you're going to live for, that there's an uncertainty involved in there. Um, so the scholars that have said that it is halal, they've said it on a couple of bases. The first one about because the employer is going to go invest it in haram or use interest based bonds or whatever. They have said that that's not your responsibility. You have entered an agreement with your employer that you are going to work for them, and as part of your benefits package, you have agreed that they will pay you in your retirement this income. How they go about and make that money or invest it, that is nothing to do with you. That is for them. So that's how they got around that problem. The second one is that they're saying that there's uncertainty. That because with a defined benefits pension, it's not like a pot of money. It's if you live for 100, up to 100, they will continue paying you up to 100. If you only live until 80, they will only pay you up to 80 years old. So when you die, your pension dies alongside with you.
So we can't
So there's an uncertainty there.
we can't assign a nominee.
So with the first type of pension, you can the personal pension, the defined contribution pension. You complete an expression of wishes form and you decide who your money goes with to. With the defined benefits pension, the scheme will have in place who they deem your nominee. So if you're married and you pass away, the scheme may have a rule in there that we will pay your wife 50% of the pension that you was receiving. If you have children, the scheme may have a rule in there that we will provide 10% of the pension to each child until they reach adulthood, so 18 or 21. So that's dependent on the scheme. You will have to look into the scheme and decide. So what I mean with the pension will pass with you is that the main sort of pension fund will stop paying the main income to you. But yes, they could pass on to your wife or your children for a number of years or until they pass, depending on the scheme rules. But if you're not married and you have no children and it's not in the scheme rules, it could completely end with you. So yeah, so the second point that they're saying that some scholars say that it's not acceptable is because of the uncertainty in how long you live. The other scholars that are saying that it's halal, they're saying no, it is halal. There is certainty there for you because you know if I live until 70 years, my company is going to give me a pension. If I live until 80 years, they're going to pay until I'm 80. If I live until 100, 120, they are going to pay me. So that certainty is there. There is no uncertainty. I know what I'm getting. This is the formula of what I'm going to earn, and that is why it's certain. So with that one, there is a difference of opinion, um, but there is an opinion that is halal. Um, and then the third point that the scholars that say is halal as well is that they say that it is part of your employer agreement, your contract, that this is an employer benefit for you. And when you start your job, that you have agreed that this is also part of your income. So those are the three types of pensions. The first two, there's no sort of discussion on it. They're halal. As long with the second one, with the defined contribution, you ensure that your investments are held in a halal fund, then there's no discussion about it. The third one, there's a little bit of discussion, but again, I don't see, me personally, from what I've read, and again, I'm not a scholar, I feel it's acceptable.
So what about brothers who are self-employed or the businessman? How can they contribute pensions privately?
Yeah. So if you're self-employed, then you are responsible for your own pension. You need to now set up a pension account, and you can literally go onto Google, type in set up pension, yeah, and there will be a plethora of companies. So you can look at the likes of AJ Bell, you can look at the likes of Aviva, um, who else is there? Royal London, whoever there is. There's many companies, and you can set up a pension account with them, and you can begin contributing to them. It's very easy. It's very simple. If you don't understand it and you are confused, then seek financial advice. Always seek financial advice. It's better to pay a few £100 now for advice, and a few £100 every single year for advice, and get that advice and be invested correctly, ensure you don't have any tax liabilities, than it is not to get that advice because you've and not understand it, and then suffer poor performance, poor investment results, having to pay taxes that you otherwise wouldn't have to pay. Um, so I'll give you an example. When I was working at one of my jobs, a new client walks in, they have their pensions, they've reached retirement age. So now imagine they've started working at 18, 20 years old, whatever it is, and they're now at about 60 years old and they want to retire. They say they're confident, they're happy. I've been contributing to my pension. I want to find out what I'm going to get, how much it's going to earn. They had never looked at their pension in this whole time. They had been paying, I think, £200-300 a month, whatever their contribution was. And we contacted the pension company. We got a pension statement. The pension had money in it, but it was below what the person themselves had contributed. For the last 30 years, they had been contributing into their pension every single month. Every single month they've been contributing religiously, and now they have less than what they had contributed.
How come?
Because they were invested in one of the default funds 30 years ago that was poor performing. It was losing money the whole time. And those funds were charging, the fund charges were excessive. And because of that, now they have less money than they invested. They've lost the value of the money anyway because of inflation over 30 years. You can imagine the inflation hit that the value of the money's gone down over that. And now they're at retirement and they're thinking, how are we going to survive of this? Now that they had to go back to work. They have to go back to work for another 5 years to make up the shortfall for what they need. So get financial advice. You pay some money. This is another thing that is a bit of a problem in the Muslim community. We're penny pinchers. We forego making a pound to save a penny. So what I mean by that is, if I have an opportunity to make £100, say for example, I see a cheap car for sale, and I think to myself, I'm going to buy that car, I'm going to do it up, and I'm going to resell it, but it's going to cost me, I'm going to make £1,000 profit. But the car now is in Birmingham. For me to get to Birmingham, it's going to cost me £50 of fuel. Oh, it's too expensive to go. Who's going to go to Birmingham? It's too far.
That's true.
So you're giving up that opportunity because you didn't want to pay £50 for fuel to go and buy the car, and you know you were going to make £1,000. So the similar with finances. If you don't understand it, speak to an expert, pay them a bit of money, because it could end up costing you thousands of pounds if you don't.
Hi, I mean, let's go to the last topic, which is will. So, can you please let us know what are will and why is it important to us?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So a will is basically your final wishes, what you want to happen to your estate after your passing. So you write it down. You say, I own this property. I have this much in my bank account. I own this car. I want my property to go to my wife. I want my car to go to my son, for example. I want my bank account to go to my daughter. When you complete that on your passing, the person, the executor of your estate, will pull out the will, say, yeah, look, we've got a valid will here. So we're going to give the property to his wife, we're going to give the car to his son, and the bank account to his daughter.
So what, will is written in a plain paper?
Yeah, plain paper. As long as you have the witnesses that sign it.
Okay.
But again, you need to get an expert to write it for you.
Oh, cool.
There are some DIY options that you can go onto Google and try and do it yourself. However, the issue with that is that a lot of people make mistakes, and potentially your will could become invalid.
Yeah.
And so you want to be safe. Pay a couple of £100 and get your wills in place sort it out. Once it's sorted, you don't have to look at it again. Why is it important for Muslims? Firstly, why is it important generally? Generally, if you don't have a will in place and you pass away, you will have to go through what's known as intestate. So not you, because you'll be dead, but your executor or the person that's managing your estate will have to, your family will have to go through what's called intestacy rules. So you will have to go to the court. You will have to apply for letters of administration. After getting that, then you can begin to manage the estate. So you're wasting money and time. It's going to be a lot more expensive for your family in the long run to go through the court to get the letters of administration and then divide your estate. And then when they're dividing your estate, they're not doing it towards your wishes. They're doing it in terms of the UK law. So however the UK law has set it up. So at the moment, it's a share will go to the wife, and then a few shares will go to each of the kids, and then whatever's left will also be divided between the wife and the kids. So the intestacy rule, you can find them on Google, and they will walk you through it depending on how your family's set up. So if you wanted to leave something for your mother, for example, you want to leave something for your father, you can't do that under intestacy. You have to have a will in place, otherwise your wishes will not be granted unless they align with intestacy. Then
but still family has to go through court process.
We'll have to go through the court processes, and then it becomes very long. Now, why is it important for Muslims? Because in Islam we have our own inheritance rules.
Correct, yeah.
We have our own inheritance rules. So if you don't have a valid will in place, you will not be following the Islamic ruling. For example, in the UK, they don't distinguish between what share is given to the daughter, what share is given to the son, what share is given to the wife, what share is given to your mother, your father. It's they have their own system in place, and so that is why it's very, very important for a Muslim to get in place. So to summarize, it's very easy to do. You just contact a will writer. Very easy to find in your area. Tell them that you want to get it done in an Islamic method. They will be able to draft it for you to align with Islam. When you have a will in place, you will not have to go to court and get a letters of administration. It will be as per your wishes, and you will, in the long term, save your family a lot of money and headache.
So if we have a will in place, do we need to also mention to our bank providers or any other suppliers we are profiting from?
Okay, so with a will only comes into place after you pass away.
Yep.
Yeah. So while you're alive, it has no effect whatsoever. So if, for example, you was no longer happy with your will while you're alive, you pick it up, you rip it up, and that's it. It's finished. Or you write a new will that replaces your old will. But while you're alive, it has no impact. The family cannot use it. No one can take advantage of it. In terms of while you're alive, for example, if you were to become disabled or incapacitated, mentally unwell, for whatever reason you was to go into a coma, and your family needed to get into contact with your bank, because say you're the main breadwinner, you pay the bills, you pay the mortgage for your account, and they have no access to it, you need what's known as a lasting power of attorney. If you don't have a power of attorney in place, your family will be in a very, very, very hard and sticky position, because the banks will not deal with them. No one will. When you go into hospital, the hospital doesn't have to take into account what you suggest. So, for example, if you wanted to be resuscitated, the hospital can turn around to your family and say, "No, we're not going to resuscitate him in case of his heart failing, because we don't feel there's a need." But where there's a power of attorney in place, the attorney can say to the hospital, "No, he's given me his rights to decide what happens to him medically, and I'm saying that you should resuscitate him." So while you're alive, you need what's known as a lasting power of attorney. Again, your will writer or a solicitor can draft those up for you. They do cost a bit more than a will, so you're probably looking in the region of a couple hundred up to £500, even more, depending on the solicitor you're using. And then on your passing, that is when a will comes into effect and will take place.
Oh, that's a great insight.
Yeah.
In fact, my neighbor
Yeah,
has passed away,
yeah,
and the house is empty for a year now. I was wondering why it was happening. Then I
yeah,
found out the child has gone to the court
yeah.
asking for the ownership because there was no will.
There was no will. Yeah, absolutely. And how much money would it have cost him to go court? Because a lot of the normal person is going to contact a solicitor to do that for them, and we know how much solicitors
Yeah,
charge. How long has it taken? In this year, for example, property prices, the market is fluctuating. If it wait any longer, it might fall, it might go up.
go
We
up.
don't
Yeah,
know. But in that meantime, the bills have still have to be paid. The rent, the
council tax.
council tax still has to be paid. So it's all going to be paid from the estate, but it's all piling up in the meantime. A lot of people sometimes have to get loans just to cover it in the meantime. The child, she could have been waiting to sell that to fund her own lifestyle or whatever it may be. So yeah, absolutely, just get a will in place. It's very easy and very simple to do. It only takes a couple of hours with a will writer. He'll sit you down, walk you through it. He'll go away, he'll draft your will, and he'll come back and he will get you to sign it with your witnesses.
Yeah, it's good to know about power of attorney.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if I'm not in a capacity to make decisions on my health,
Yeah,
so if I assign my wife
yeah,
as power of attorney, then she can have power
yeah.
to
To access,
take
yeah,
decision on behalf of me.
yeah, absolutely. So there's two powers of attorney in the UK. One is for property and finance,
Yeah.
and one is for health and welfare.
Oh,
So the
okay.
first one will give her control to access your bank accounts, and the second one will give her access or the right to make a decision in terms of where you receive healthcare, um, what type of healthcare you receive, what care home you could potentially go into, um, whether you should get care at home from nurses, etc. So they're both very, very important, very, very important to get into place.
I mean, thanks a lot for your
No
time.
worries.
You have enlightened us in a lot of ways. I myself, not known lots of topics has been covered. And thank you for you all joining us. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe our channel. Islamic Learning Adventures. See you